I knew it. I shouldn't have been invited here tonight. You should have included me out. Because if there is a man who can feel overlooked in an empty room, underpaid when he's just been given the day, unappreciated by angels and ancestors alike, well, that unfortunate prodigy is standing in my shoes. I can make a meal out of the faintest slight. I can, with the precision of an accountant who thinks salvation is 2 times 2, calculate the interest on hurts nobody intended to lend me. One wrong glance, one delayed reply, and the little clerk of my personal self begins to stamp past due, past due. Do you know that clerk? He lives behind the eyes and whispers, they should have remembered me, they should have thanked me, they should have paid me with praise, with loyalty, with an apology delivered promptly at my convenience. Let's twist that Bible upside down and shake out the coins that rattle from the red letters. Hear this, forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. And again, judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Now listen to a harder truth that is not in ink, but must be etched into our marrow. Resentment is not proof they did wrong. Resentment is proof I made a secret deal and sent an invoice nobody signed. Do you think it's the God self of us that writes these IOUs? Do you suppose infinity carries a ledger and shortens the days of peace until someone shows up with interest and gratitude? Or is it our human nerd, that little bargaining self that must sell, must buy, must haggle, must keep accounts, and then calls the unpaid bill resentment? I say to you, resentment is the receipt for a contract we wrote in invisible ink. I will love you if you return me to myself with acknowledgments. I will serve you if you keep me safe from the sting of being ordinary. I will give to you, provided you repay me in the currency of fairness as I define it. I will trust God if God keeps my weather mild and my enemies photogenic. Did you mail that to your spouse? Did your friends initial every clause? Did heaven send it back countersigned with an embossed seal? Or is it sitting, as all such false covenants sit, in the briefcase of the personal self, unsigned by anyone but you, and yet enforced ruthlessly, tearfully, silently, with a smile that hides a bailiff's warrant? I must confess how modern I am at this. I have typed long messages that were really invoices disguised as gratitude. I have performed acts of service that were actually down payments on future tenderness. I have smiled at my neighbor and slid beneath the doormat of my soul a petty contract that reads, remember me later, or I shall remember you now, and not kindly. Then I have taken my resentment to prayer as evidence, as if God were a magistrate and I an honest plaintiff. But the Master did not teach a divine small claims court. He said, agree with thine adversary quickly. He said, forgive 70 times 7. He said, if any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. Does that sound like bargaining? Or does it sound like dying daily to the bookkeeper in us and living from a love that cannot be invoiced? I stand here outwardly cold-blooded. Let us diagnose it plain and inwardly overheated with love for God and man. We will not continue this inner litigation. In the hours ahead, we will lay our hands on the very paper where our names are scribbled, and we will tear it, not to become doormats, not to excuse injustice, not to grow numb and call that holiness, but to be free enough to set clean boundaries without bitterness, to give without emotional interchange, to love impersonally and universally. The promise is simple and surgical. We will identify the contract as it arises, this subtle calculation, this sigh that waits for payment, and we will return it to the fire of the Christ within, where all false notes are consumed. For where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, and liberty has no room for invoices. Take a breath with me. In that breath, can you feel it? The receipt begins to fade. Not because they have changed, but because at last We are willing to change, willing to die a little to the one who keeps score and to live from the one who gives scoreless love. Let us open the briefcase of that little clerk we spoke of, not to shame him, but to see what tools he carries to keep us perpetually poor. It is a small ledger book, dog-eared, easy to hide behind our smile, and on its first page is written in childish law, if I do X, you must do Y. If I sacrifice, you must repay. If I am good, life must be fair. That is the contract, that is the whole theology of humanhood, scrawled in pencil. It is not printed on vellum by heaven. It is not countersigned by Christ Jesus or even by your second cousin. It is a private bill of sale by which the personal self seeks to purchase love, safety, and significance at retail prices, and then, when the package does not arrive, files a grievance under the name resentment. The currencies accepted on this black market are interesting, and oh, how portable. Approval, the small coin that never stays in the palm. Loyalty, that paper note we demand others print with our face upon it. Gratitude, with its exquisite watermark that we hold up to the light to see if it's genuine. Attention, those bright tokens we hoard like children. Emotional security, an insurance policy we insist someone else must pay premiums on. Status, the decorative ribbon we pin to our empty lapel. Sexual access, which humanhood mistakes for intimacy and writes up as proof of being wanted. And being chosen, that numbered ticket we clutch in line at the counter of worthiness. Do you think it's the God self of us that trades in these? Do you imagine the infinite walks about with a sack of you were right and you are mine to hand out to the well-behaved? Or is it our frightened somebody, our little humanhood, bargaining for a name tag? The genius, and I use the word in the tragic sense of this contract, is its disguise. It comes wrapped in virtue, kindness, but with an invoice paper-clipped to the bouquet. Generosity timed with a silent stopwatch. How long until they notice? Patience with a countdown. 3 more chances and then I collect. We tell ourselves we are loving, and we are, but we have added fine print. And love plus fine print is no longer love, it is leverage. When thou doest alms, said the Master, do not sound a trumpet. And again, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Shall we twist that Bible upside down and rephrase for our century? When you offer your heart, don't staple a claim ticket to it. When you lift a burden, do not weigh it afterward to see if the scale tips your way. I can hear the ledger whisper even now in a dozen dialects. I cooked, so you must cherish. I listened, so you must orbit me when my sky is dark. I obeyed the rules, so life must be fair. I told the truth, so the meeting must go my way. I stayed faithful, so my body must stay youthful. I said no to that temptation, so God must say yes to my timetable. Is this prayer or is it purchase order? Is this devotion or negotiation? Take no thought for your life, the Master said. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. But the clerk takes thought all day long, and he seeks first the kingdom of being a somebody. Secured by agreements he imagines everyone else must honor. Do you see how humanhood tries to cure its lonely sense of separation by writing up exchanges? It believes, if I can just get enough of their yes, I will be enough. And so it haggles sweetly, piously, even sacrificially until the day the shipment is delayed, and then the gavel comes down in our own breast. I have been wrong. No one signed this. No one ever promised. Yet the unpaid bill is waived as proof that the world, God, and your neighbor have failed their duty. This is the logic of the tomb self. This is living inside the ledger as if it made life. The God self does not traffic in IOUs. Freely ye have received, freely give. That red letter is the handwriting of reality. Our humanhood may dress up its bargaining in lace and scripture and calls it prudent love, but the truth, stark and liberating, is this. The personal self is trying to purchase love and fairness, and when the store is closed, it names its own ache, resentment, and blames the weather. Let us at least know what book we're carrying, so that in the hour appointed we may lay it down and let our yes be yes without price, and our no be no without bitterness. Now let me ask you questions that have no place to hide, not in the hymn book, not in the polite smile, not even in the sanctuary of your private reasoning. When you give, are you giving or investing? When you help, are you helping or arranging the outcome so that your narrative emerges righteous and central? When you forgive, are you forgiving or suspending the sentence until they act correctly and you can release them on probation? When you speak kindly, is it kindness or is it the first installment on a debt you intend to collect with interest? Do you want love or do you want payment? When you pick up the phone at 2 in the morning, are you answering the Christ in your neighbor, or are you adding up credits against a future call you expect them to answer at your 2 in the morning? When you cook, is it nourishment or is it a legal brief served hot? Exhibit A for why you deserve cherishing on demand. When you listen, is it presence or is your silence an invoice typed on the paper of self-sacrifice? When you say yes, is it freedom or is it an IOU you are sliding across the table of tomorrow? If ye love them which love you, what reward have ye, said the Master? Do not even the publicans the same? Will we twist that Bible upside down and hear it fresh? If your love is paid in their prompt response, are you loving God's child or bartering with a customer? Let us draw a clean line, because God loves clean lines. Needs are holy when they are spoken. Contracts are unholy when they are silent. A need says plainly yes or no or please, and then releases the result into God. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. A contract refuses to speak and then enforces itself with weather. A cold front of silence, a drizzle of complaint, a gale of moral superiority. A need can be met or not met. Love remains. A contract must be honored, or else the bailiff of mood will seize the day. Which are you practicing? What are the signatures of the contract's handwriting? Tightness in the chest as you rehearse the speech they will finally deserve. The breath held like a hostage when their name crosses your screen. The little auditor in your ribs, sliding beads on an abacus, point for me, point against them, tally due Friday. The inner theater, where you direct a standing ovation for their apology, complete with your magnanimous nod as you graciously accept the scanning of every room, every inbox, every meal, not for God, but for fairness as you define it. Do you feel it? Do you see how quickly the peace of the soul becomes collateral on a loan the personal self has issued? Now answer me and answer yourself. If your peace depends on their response, you are not loving, you are negotiating. Do you think it is the God self of us that requires an apology to breathe? Do you imagine infinity restrains its light until your sister acknowledges the casserole and your colleague remembers your idea? Or is it our human nude, that little somebody desperate to be somebody, that must have a receipt stamped paid in full before it will release its grip? Freely ye have received, freely give. That is the law of the God self. The law of the personal self is, freely I have advanced, now freely repay. Look beneath the ledger and you will find the old myth again, a sense of selfhood apart from God, seeking proof that it exists by what returns to it. Resentment is not merely a feeling, it is an attachment to a self that must be validated by others to survive. This is why it gnaws like hunger and freezes like night. It is why it seems so righteous and feels so hollow. You are not starving for their fairness, you are starving for your own source. You are not cold because they withhold. You are cold because you stepped outside the hearth of the Christ within and tried to warm yourself at the fires of agreement. So hear this, not as scold, but as salvation. The moment you notice the chest tighten, the speech rehearse, the abacus click, ask, am I here to love or to collect? If it is to collect, the clerk has taken the desk again. Step back, die daily to the bookkeeper, speak your need with a clean yes or a clean no, and then let it be. Hold no man in condemnation, for the kingdom is not a mall and Christ is not a cashier. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Treasure the inner spring, and the heart will stop prowling for payment. And in that quiet, you will find what negotiation can never buy, peace that does not tremble when no one signs. Let us go down where the inkpot tipped over, where the first line of this ledger was scrawled in a hurry. The myth of separation, the aloneness that whispers, you are apart, you are under your own management, you must go get what you need. If you listen closely to that whisper, you will hear the rustle of contracts being folded into your pocket. For the personal self is born with a creed, and it is not the Beatitudes. Its creed is this: if I can get them to behave, I can finally rest. If I can secure their yes, I will be enough. That is the ego's religion. That is its liturgy. That is the incense of its temple control, perfumed to smell like care. Do you think it is the God self of us that trembles for guarantees? Does infinity check the forecast of human moods before it shines? I and my Father are one, said the Master, not two with a shaky treaty between us. Oneness does not invoice oneness. Oneness does not look out through these eyes and beg the world to assemble itself in a comforting pattern before peace will come. That is humanhood. Only a sense of selfhood apart from God would stand at the window and signal the traffic of people and events to move this way and that, saying, there, now I am safe. How safe are we in a house of cards, my friend? Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. The secret contract is a clever plaster over a deeper crack. Instead of dying to the personal self, which feels like losing, we write a quiet policy to avoid the funeral. We think, I shall not die, I shall arrange. But the Master's arithmetic does not work that way. Whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. Let's twist that Bible upside down and say it plain for our age. Whoever tries to survive as a separate somebody by controlling others will forfeit the real life. Whoever dares to relinquish that somebody, the bookkeeper, the arranger, will discover life already whole and unbought. I confess I have built shrines to being enough and then staffed them with ushers who seat people according to how much they could reassure me. I have said in the secret places of my heart, if this one affirms me, if that one chooses me, if these conditions align, then I shall uncurl and sleep. And when they did not, I did not sleep. I litigated, but listen, the God self does not sleep on pillowed outcome. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Not as the world giveth meaning, not as compliance, not as applause, not as a coach's nod or a committee's vote. The peace of God is from within to without, not from without to within. It is the first lie of Eden that our good lies on a branch we must reach for with clever hands, even if we must break the command to get it. We have been reaching ever since. But the kingdom of God is within you. Do you see the paradox? The more frantically we organize the outer field, the more inner famine we induce. The more we drink the salt water of agreement, the thirstier we become. Whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. Impersonal, inexhaustible, not dependent on who returns your call or repeats your name. The human self demands, guarantees, because it suspects ruin around every corner. It hoards praise and promises and policies and prenuptials and procedures and calls that wisdom. The God self rests because its source is not on payroll. Take no thought for your life. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Take no thought does not mean neglect. It means do not draft contracts against emptiness. Seek first does not mean at dawn only. It means now, and again now, we return to the spring within and let that sufficiency melt the urge to manage others into righteousness. So let us admit the root cause without flinching. The contract is our attempt to cure separation with control, and it cannot be cured that way. Control begets more separation, more vigilance, more nights where the soul patrols the borders, looking for trespassers and tallying permits. Dying daily to the personal self looks like loss to the frightened mind, but it is the only passage out of the tomb. It is to step outside the body self and the money self and the praise self and use them lightly, graciously as instruments, no longer as air. It is to say with the heart unarmed, abide in me and I in you, and feel perhaps for the first time that enoughness is not earned, not granted, not signed for, only revealed when the clerk sets down his pen and the soul consents to be one. Now let's lay out the map. Not to accuse, but to recognize where the altar stands and what is being sacrificed upon it. Resentment is never general. It points with a priest's finger to a specific shrine where you are demanding repayment. 3 altars receive the most candles and the most tears in humanhood: family, romance, and work. If you want to find your contract, go where you feel most owed. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also, and where your unpaid treasure is, there will your resentment be, humming like a hive. First, the family altar. The script is so familiar it sounds virtuous. After all I've done, you must include me, honor me, stay close, and oh yes, become the person I wrote in my head. There it is, obligation disguised as love, guilt braided with casseroles. Do you think it is the God self of us that counts dishes washed and Christmases hosted? Do you imagine the Christ within requires a place card at the table to feel included? The Master stretched out his hand and said, "Who is my mother, and who are my brethren? Whosoever shall do the will of my Father, the same is my brother and sister and mother." Let's twist that Bible upside down for today. Kinship is obedience to love, not compliance with my preferences. When the family contract runs the liturgy, resentment shows up as sighs that herd, silence that pressures, gifts freighted with duty. If you feel the tug to curate their destiny so your love won't be wasted, hear the pen scratching, the clerk is drafting again. Second, the romance altar. Here, the personal self hires a high priest. If I choose you, you must heal my insecurity, desire me on schedule, never disappoint me, and function as a full-time weather system that guarantees sunshine for my self-image. We call it chemistry. Often it is contract. We issue tests. Will you text first? Will you notice the change in my tone? Can you read my mind and pass my pop quiz on reassurance? And when they miss one question, we withdraw to the inner courtroom. Case reopened. Do you think it's the God self of us that requires another's pulse to steady our own? Did the Master predicate his peace on Peter's steadiness? He said, "My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth." Not as the world gives meaning, not as consistency, not as charm, not as a partner, never missing a cue. Where the romance contract reigns, resentment wears cologne. It flirts with withholding, measures kisses as collateral, and confuses drama with depth. Love becomes negotiation in candlelight. Third, the work altar. This temple is fluorescent lit and full of hymns to fairness. If I am competent and loyal, I must be valued, promoted on time, and protected from politics. Many an efficient martyr is ordained here. When the promotion goes elsewhere, when the credit is misplaced, resentment dons a gray suit, cynicism, the sacrament of the disappointed, passive sabotage, the incense burned under the desk. Do you think it is the God self of us that needs a title to validate function? The laborer is worthy of his hire, the master affirmed. Yes, speak your wage cleanly and do your work as unto God. But the contract adds a tithe, admire me, or else. Then the soul leaks through the day, and each email becomes a courtroom exhibit. Render unto Caesar the email, render unto God the heart. The rest is bargaining. Now, before the intellect races to defend, pause and name. Do not justify. Do not theologize. Do not arrange a jury. Simply write, if only in your inner speech, my contract at the family altar reads, after all I've done, you must. My contract at the romance altar reads, if I choose you, you must. My contract at the work altar reads, if I am loyal and competent, they must. And then ask plainly, is this love or collection? Is this need spoken cleanly or leverage wrapped in piety? Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. Naming is the doorway. The bailiff loses his key when the clause is spoken aloud. Resentment will point you to your altar. Stand there. See the bargain on the slab. And only prepare for the sacrifice that frees. Not your peace, but your contract. We will not live in tombs built of IOUs. We will use these altars as places to die daily to the bookkeeper and to rise without invoice into love. Now comes a truth with no sugar on it. Resentment feels like strength. It squares the shoulders. It folds the arms and says, I won't be fooled again. It wears the mask of boundary while it installs a bar in the cell. It seems like independence because the mouth says no more, but the soul is still calibrated to their weather. You still check the forecast of their face. Tell me, is that liberty or is it dependence in a better outfit? Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free. Liberty is not opposed. Liberty does not need a villain to justify itself. Liberty is not fueled by outrage. It is sustained by source. Look at the inner theater where resentment plays the lead. It is a long-running show. Scenes are replayed until the carpet is worn. You rewrite their words so they finally prove your point. You compose the perfect retort for a meeting that ended last Tuesday. You direct a courtroom drama in which your witness never stumbles and your verdict is always unanimous. Evidence is gathered, indexed, reheated. Closing arguments are rehearsed in the shower. Cross-examinations march through your commute. This is not strength. This is residence inside your own mind as if it were a mausoleum. It's a tomb if you're living inside of it. It's only a mind if you're outside, using it as an instrument. When the mind is an identity maker, it embalms you in yesterday's hurt. When the mind is an instrument, you pick it up to answer the phone, to compose the clean email, to speak a plain yes or no, and then you put it down. Do you think it is the God self of us that needs to rehearse wounds to keep from being deceived? Do you suppose infinity must keep a scrapbook of injustices to remain wise? Or is it our humanhood, trembling for a name, dying for a pedestal that must maintain the case file? Hear the Master, judge not, and ye shall not be judged. And again, agree with thine adversary quickly. Let's twist that Bible upside down for our use today. Stop feeding the prosecuting attorney within. Settle the inner lawsuit before it drags you back into court at 3 a.m. The longer you try to win the case, the longer you must keep the defendant near. That is the paradox. Resentment seems like distance, but it is a tether. You cannot hate a man and be free of him. You must feed him in mind to keep your sentence alive. Resentment says, I will not need you, and then checks your shadow at noon. It vows, I'm done, and then polishes the chain. That chain may glitter like moral clarity, but it is still fastened to their ankle and to your heart. This is the hard truth you came here to hear. Resentment is not independence. It is attachment disguised as judgment. It is a form of prayer to a false god, attention paid, devotion given, energy tithed to the very image you claim not to worship. Whom the sun sets free is free indeed. Free indeed means you can think of them without contracting, speak of them without narrating, meet them without extracting. Free indeed means your breath is not on their payroll. How then is power known in the spirit? Not by clutching the cudgel of grievance, but by stepping out of the cave. Lazarus, come forth, the master cried. And when the man shuffled out, still tangled in grave clothes, he added, loose him and let him go. Do you hear your name in that? Come forth from the theater. Come out from the screens. You project upon the living. And when you feel the old wrappings of memory, loosen them, not by excusing evil, not by erasing consequences, but by refusing to live inside the scene as if it were your address. Die daily to the bailiff and the bookkeeper. Use your mind like a tool in God's workshop. Make your statement cleanly. Set your boundary without bitterness, and then lay the hammer down. Outwardly, this may look cold-blooded. Inwardly, it burns like love. No emotional interchange. No invisible invoices. No dim corridors humming with arguments. Only insulation, which is not indifference but clarity. The Christ in you touches the Christ in them without asking humanhood to behave first. And in that touch, a different strength appears, the kind that does not need an enemy to stand up straight, the kind that can walk past the tomb, outside the body and its quickened pulse, outside the mind and its muttering jury, and say, in a voice that is not loud but is final, I am not attached to you by condemnation. I am joined to God by love, impersonal love. Those two words sound like a glacier to the human ear, but to the soul they sound like a hearth. Human love wants an emotional exchange. I warm you, now you warm me. I nurse your mood, now you nurse mine. That is traffic. That is weather. That is the marketplace where the clerk stands with his little stamps. Spiritual love is not traffic. It is ocean. It is sun. He maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good. Be ye therefore perfect, said the Master. Let's twist that Bible upside down and put it in today's tongue. Let your love be like climate, not like commerce. Freely ye have received, freely give. No toll booth, no ticket stub, no invisible invoices. Do you think it is the God self of us that says, I poured myself out today, somebody better fill me up by 5 o'clock? Do you imagine infinity scrolling its contacts for reassurance? Or is that our little somebody counting spoons again? Impersonal love does not mean coldness. It means you are not negotiating. It does not mean neglect. It means you are not depleting yourself in order to buy acceptance. It does not mean tolerating abuse. It means the throne of your heart is not up for lease. You can say, no, you may not speak to me that way, without a flicker of hatred. You can walk out of the room and still hold the door of your inner blessing open. Remember the Master with the woman taken in adultery. Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. No heat of scorn, no permission for harm, clarity with light, boundary without bitterness. Impersonal love acts as needed, sometimes gentle, sometimes iron, and never sends a bill. It can separate without punishing, correct without scorching, withdraw without a speech that tries to brand the other with guilt. Judge not, said the Christ. And again, agree with thine adversary quickly. Twist it for our use. Refuse the inner prosecution. Settle the account by tearing it up, not by winning. When you cease to need their contrition to breathe, you can speak the clean yes or the clean no, and your voice won't tremble because it isn't carrying a courtroom on its back. Now, insulation, this is not apathy, it is alignment. The monastic life lived in the marketplace. Abide in me, and I in you. I am the vine, ye are the branches. The branch does not invoice the vine for sap. It abides and bears fruit. Insulation means you serve, you give, you parent, you manage, you mend from the inner current, not from the emergency generator of adrenaline and validation. You can sit through a stormy dinner and not become storm. You can tend a weeping friend without borrowing their sorrow as your identity. You can labor long without the aftertaste of martyrdom. Why? Because you are outside the body using it as an instrument, not living in it as a tomb. Outside the mind using it to write an email, not living in it as a ledger. Outside the emotions using them to flavor kindness, not living in them as your God. How does this look at 3 o'clock on a Thursday? It looks like this. You answer the call because love answers to the extent of your light, not to the extent of your fear. You say yes, cleanly, and give the thing that is yours to give. Or you say no, cleanly, and refuse the thing that would make you a liar to your own soul. No explanation aimed to extract their understanding. No sulk to punish their disappointment. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. And when the human heart inside you asks for repayment, you return it to the vine. Father, forgive me my trespass of bargaining, as I forgive those whom I have billed. Pray for them who despitefully use you, not to change them into your image, but to keep your channel clear of invoices. Impersonal love is not less warmth. It is more fire and less smoke. It burns with the joy of the Christ, not the fumes of transaction. It relieves you of the heavy costume of being a necessary somebody in every room and leaves you free to be a faithful instrument, sometimes heard, sometimes silent, always unbought. When love is impersonal, it becomes universal. And when it is universal, it is inexhaustible. Then resentment finds nothing to hook into. Because there is no contract left to collect, there is only the sun rising on whomever is before you today and setting without a single receipt. Now, if you want a practice and not a performance, here it is, 4 quiet moves you can make in a kitchen chair with no audience and no halo, and I promise you I have to make them before breakfast more often than I like to admit. We are not going to dramatize anything. We are going to disarm something, not the other fellow, ourselves. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am not the clerk. First move, locate the clause. Not the whole contract yet, just the sharp little sentence doing the damage. Write it or say it where you can hear its voice without the choir. If I, then they must. Make it embarrassingly specific. If I host every holiday, then they must orbit me on Mother's Day. If I text first all week, then they must wake up first on Saturday wanting me. If I cover my coworker's mistake, then they must testify to my brilliance in the meeting. If I listen without interrupting, then they must ask how I am with reverence. Do you think it is the God self of us that hides demands under casseroles and courtesy? Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. This is not for them. This is for you. So the clause can no longer operate like a switchblade in your pocket. Second move, name the payoff. What were you secretly buying with that clause? Worthy, safe, chosen, superior, indispensable. Pick the word that makes your ribs ache a little and don't sanctify it. Name it. I have found the word indispensable scribbled in my own margins more times than I care to confess. And when I found it, I saw why my jaw hurt. I'd been clenching all day to keep my world from learning. I was, in fact, dispensable. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. If your heart is buried under the word superior, do not be surprised if you keep needing a villain to stand above. If your treasure is being chosen, do not be shocked when you begin staging tests to make sure they still select you. This is how humanhood buys identity at a price it cannot afford. Third move, die daily to the personal self. This is the tearing. Surrender the right to be repaid. That line will feel like robbery to the bookkeeper good. It means you found the safe. Say it plainly to the soul. I release my claim to payment. I renounce the need to be right as my substitute for being free. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Twist it for our use. I cancel my invoice, and therefore I am freed from living as a creditor. Whosoever will save his life shall lose it. If you will save your story of how right you are, you will lose your peace. If you will lose that story for love's sake, you will find your breath again. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be free? Do you think it is the God self of us that keeps a museum of proofs to justify our chains? Fourth move, return to source. Turn within, not theatrically, not with a stopwatch and a goal, but with a simple, naked sentence that unseats the clerk. Father, I of mine own self can do nothing. Supply does not come from their gratitude. Worth does not come from their inclusion. Peace does not come from their agreement. Abide in me, and I in you. Without me ye can do nothing. Sit even for 30 seconds and let the shoulders drop as if you were setting down a heavy briefcase. Do not try to feel holy. Let the breath be the usher who leads you back to your seat in God. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, not as the world gives meaning, not as fairness, not as applause, not as bright red hearts on the screen. As you abide, notice how the urge to manage them loosens without negotiation. The invoice dissolves because there is no longer an accountant to send it. These four moves are not a ritual for special occasions. They are a way of walking. Catch the clause, name the payoff, die to the creditor, return to the vine. 70 times 7, if needed, in a single Tuesday. Outwardly, it may look cold-blooded when you stop sending bills. Inwardly, it will overheat with love. No emotional interchange demanded. No invisible invoices mailed at midnight. Only the quiet liberty of one who has torn up the contract and found in the ash a life that does not tremble for signatures. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free. And stand fast again at noon and at dusk until the heart learns that freedom is not purchased, it is practiced. Now we must speak a word that makes every inner attorney nervous: forgiveness. I know what the clerk in you is saying. This is where he excuses the thief and leaves me without a lock. No. Let's twist that Bible upside down and listen to the Master himself. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, love your enemies, pray for them which despitefully use you. Do you hear the shift from Moses' court to Christ's kingdom? Mosaic law makes tidy ledgers. Christ dissolves the courtroom. Not because evil is unreal to human sense, but because your soul cannot breathe in a courthouse where you are both plaintiff and judge. Forgiveness is not the approval of their behavior. Forgiveness is the end of your inner lawsuit. It is the clerk setting down the pen, the judge leaving the bench, the bailiff opening the windows. Do you think it is the God self of us that thrives on verdicts? Do you imagine infinity needs a gavel to secure order? Or is it our humanhood, lonely for power and hungry for security, that keeps the docket full? Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Twist it for our day. Stop prosecuting in mind. It is your own peace you are sending to prison. Lord, How oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him till 7 times? Peter, bless his practical heart, brings his calculator. I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. 70 times 7 does not mean sentimental amnesia. It means stop renewing the contract every time the wound is remembered. Each recollection tries to stamp another invoice. Forgiveness refuses to co-sign. You may have to cancel that invoice this morning at lunch at 3 a.m. and again in line at the market. 70 times 7, not to make you noble, but to keep the pipeline clear so life may flow unpurchased through you. Let us be plain. Condemnation is self-harm in religious clothing. When you hold them in judgment, you must keep them close enough to monitor, to measure, to retell, and so you bind yourself to the very image you say you despise. With what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again, the tape you stretch across their failure loops back around your own throat. Do you think it is power to keep a man's sin alive in your mind? It is a chain, and both ends are in your hands. Drop it. Not for his sake first, though. Love will do what love does, but for breath. But if I forgive, won't I become a target? No. If you forgive, you stop painting a bullseye on your heart that says, please repay me. Forgiveness does not remove consequences. It removes the poison of personal vengeance. You can press charges and still release hatred. You can end a partnership and still bless the person as they go. You can refuse the holiday invitation and still send light into that house. Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. There it is no stoning and no permission to repeat the wound. Boundaries without bitterness, clarity without scorch. Make it practical. The thought rises. They owe me. Answer quietly, Father, forgive me my debts of bargaining as I forgive those I have billed. The scene replays. Breathe and say, I end the case. Agree with thine adversary quickly, not by agreeing with falsehood, but by refusing to fuel the argument inside. The face appears in memory, your chest tightens. Place the name in the heart's chapel and pray as the Master prayed at the worst hour a man ever knew. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Then, if action is required, act with the swiftness of truth and the absence of venom. If distance is required, step back with a clean no and no closing speech designed to brand them. Outwardly, it may look cold-blooded to stop rehearsing pain. Inwardly, it is a furnace of love. 70 times 7, the bill rises, and 70 times 7, you cancel it. In time, the clerk grows bored, the judge retires, and the courtroom is turned into a sanctuary. There, without a single gavel left to bang, you discover that releasing your claim on life is how life claims you. For if ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. Not reward and punishment law, the law of liberty. End the inner lawsuit, and you will find the sentence lifted from your own heart. After the contract is gone, life doesn't turn into a marshmallow. It becomes a blade, sharp, clean, useful, and incapable of wounding unless you insist on gripping it by the edge. Let your communication be, yea, yea, nay, nay. Now that line ceases being a slogan and becomes the posture. Requests are spoken plainly because there is nothing left to extort with. Consequences are held calmly because there is no heat driving them, only alignment. No silent tests, no emotional blackmail, no artfully timed sighs to steer the room. Do you think it is the God self of us that sets traps to prove the unworthiness of those we claim to love? Or is that the clerk's last trick, folding origami guilt while he looks for a pen? Die daily to the tester and the trapper. Speak, and if the answer is no, let it be no without needing to punish it. Giving changes as radically as speech. Freely ye have received, freely give. If it isn't free, it isn't giving. It's investing in a return. And we are out of that business. That does not make us stingy, it makes us true. When you feel the old martyr rise, fine, I'll do it, but remember what I sacrificed. Stop mid-sentence. Either give it without invoice or renegotiate aloud without menace. I can do Friday, not Saturday. I can contribute time, not money. I can listen for 20 minutes with my phone off, and then I must step out. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light, said the Master. Martyrdom is not his yoke, it's our costume. Strip it off. Do you think infinity needs your exhaustion as proof of devotion? Or would he rather see a faithful instrument, oiled, rested, ready? Inside, the weather clears. The rumination that used to grind through the night like a mill with no grain falls silent because there's no case to prepare. Scorekeeping evaporates because there is nothing left to collect. And then this is how I know we are in God's country again. The inner spring of bubbles returns. You find laughter coming up in places that used to be solemn, not mockery, not bravado bubbles, like a stream running under the floorboards of your day. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, not as a contract fulfilled, not as an apology wrung from reluctant lips, but as an artesian peace that rises because you are abiding in source and not harvesting from reaction. Let me show you the difference the same scene can make when the soul is unhooked. Family, the calendar meeting that used to end in frosty silence. You say, without embroidery, I can host in May. I cannot in June. If June is needed, choose another house. I love you either way. No sermon, no ache-faced pause designed to pull contrition. If they choose another house, you send flowers and a blessing instead of a ledger. Wise as serpents, harmless as doves. Romance, the evening where tone goes sideways. Old program, interpret, test, withdraw. New life, I want warmth, not wit tonight. Can we talk at 7 without phones? If the voices rise, I will pause and finish this tomorrow. You hear? Request, boundary, consequence, clean, unheeded. No emotional interchange demanded. No invisible invoices mailed at midnight. You are outside the body using it as an instrument, heart open, throat steady, not living in it, as a tomb that needs another's breath to keep you alive. Work, the meeting where your contribution disappears into the room. Old way, smile tightly, plan a cold campaign. New way. For clarity, I prepared that brief. Please attach my name to the document. If that can't be standard, I'll limit my extra projects. Then you release the result. Render unto Caesar the email. Render unto God the heart. You neither sulk nor scorch. You act and you abide. This is not indifference. It is insulation. It looks cold-blooded to those who equate love with drama, but inwardly it is overheated with the fire of Christ. You serve without selling yourself. You set boundaries without bitterness. You say no without the aftertaste of poison, and yes without the craving for applause. You pray for those who despitefully use you precisely so you will remain a free channel, not a clogged creditor. And when, as surely as dawn, the old habit stirs, you catch it early, cancel the test, cancel the invoice, return to the vine. Boundaries become clean because you are not sharpening them on resentment. Love becomes free because it is no longer financing your identity. This is what life tastes like after the contract is ash. Clear speech, gentle firmness, a light back, a bubbling heart. When the contract dies, boundaries become clean and love becomes free. Now, the romance of revelation must become a habit or it will evaporate by Thursday. I knew it. I shouldn't have been invited to decorate your halo. You should have included me out if you wanted a show. We do not need another moment of inspiration. We need a way of catching the clerk as he reaches for his little stamps, a quiet daily discipline. No harps, no incense, only a pocketful of scripture alive, and the courage to die daily while brushing your teeth. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am not the bookkeeper. Each morning, before the world presents you with its invoices, conduct a small contract audit. Ask out loud if you dare, inwardly if you must, where am I already preparing to be owed today? What proof of worth am I going to require from those around me? Name the currency you are tempted to collect. Attention, deference, speed of reply, perfect tone, public credit, private reassurance. Do you think it is the God self of us that needs these trinkets to be whole? Take no thought for your life, said the Master. Let's twist that for our use. Take no thought for your status. Then choose a single red-letter phrase for the day and turn it into your tongue. Not to quote realize, freely ye have received, freely give becomes for Tuesday, no invoices today. Abide in me becomes I am the branch. Sap is not for sale. Let your communication be. Yea, yea, nay, nay becomes clean asks, clean no's, no theater. Write it on a card, on your palm, on your lock screen. Carry it where your fear can bump into it. Now your early warning signals, because the contract rarely walks in wearing a name tag. Feel your body. Tight jaw, shoulders creeping toward the ears, breath shallow as if the air were being rationed. You have likely started drafting terms. Listen to your mind. Are you rehearsing speeches for a meeting that hasn't happened or a dinner that ended yesterday? Are you cross-examining a face that can't hear you? That is the clerk oiling the gavel. Watch your energy. Sudden fatigue after giving it tiredness with a little heat in it, called being responsible. That is often resentment in a tuxedo. Do you think it is the God self of us that collapses after generosity and says, now someone had better notice? Or is that humanhood trying to purchase reassurance at the counter of sacrifice? When you catch one of these signals, stop. 60 seconds is enough to save you from a day of prosecution. Step outside the body as a tomb and use it as an instrument. Lower the shoulders. Place the tongue softly on the roof of the mouth. Invite one deeper breath. Whisper the day's phrase. Then cancel the clause you just discovered. I release my right to be repaid for this act. Father, I of mine own self can do nothing. Thou art my supply. Agree with thine adversary quickly, twist it again, agree quickly with the fact that the adversary here is your bargaining self. Don't argue with it. Lay it down. At midday, hold a 2-minute audit. Ask 3 questions and do not decorate the answers. Where did I feel owed? Who did I bill? What was I demanding as proof of worth? Chosen, superior, safe, indispensable. Do not scold. Surrender. Whosoever will save his life shall lose it. Will you save the story of how much you deserve, or will you lose it and breathe? Cancel the invoice you find, forgive the debtor and therefore your own heart, and return to the vine. Pray for the one you are billing, not to win them, but to wash your channel. Father, bless them, unhook me. Evening is not for brooding, it is for burial. Bury the day's contracts. Sit 5 minutes if you can. Review only enough to release. Where did resentment smolder? Where did responsibility wear a frown? Where did you rehearse after lights out? Forgive 70 times 7 in a single chair. Father, forgive them, and then, Father, forgive me my debts of bargaining as I forgive those I have billed. End the case before you sleep, so you are not summoned to court at 3 a.m. Keep the red letters near, have a small New Testament. Yes, but more. Rephrase one saying each day until it lives. Twist that Bible upside down, not to desecrate, but to drink. Love your enemies becomes I will hold no man in debt. My yoke is easy becomes no martyr badges. I walk light. Judge not becomes I resign from the bench. Do you think the infinite requires your fluency? He asks your fidelity, not self-improvement, self-surrender, not the polishing of the clerk, his quiet extinction. This will not look grand. It will look like catching a thought before it ripens into an argument, like unhooking your shoulders from your ears, like a clean no without a sermon, like a secret yes with no invoice, outwardly cold-blooded, inwardly overheated with love. Freedom is not won once. It is maintained by catching the contract the moment it forms and dying daily to the personal self. Stand fast and stand fast again. And when you forget, and you will stand fast the third time before dinner, 70 times 7, until the clerk grows bored and the branch learns finally to be a branch, sap flowing, fruit appearing, no toll booth on the limb.